Greetings collectors and welcome to today's retro game review. I thought we would take a look back at one of gaming history's best loved games, an important game, a fun game, an iconic game. Join me today as we take a fond look back at Donkey Kong classics, including Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. for the Nintendo Entertainment System. As we all know, Donkey Kong began life back in the arcades all the way back in 1981, and by all accounts was a smash hit by everyone's favourite Nintendo employee, Shigeru Miyamoto. Subsequently, just about every piece of hardware under the sun was given a home console treatment of the game. I certainly don't have all of them in my collection, but I do have some of the early releases, including the Atari 2600 and ColecoVision editions. It is perhaps sacrilege to many Nintendo fans though that I talk about Donkey Kong in relation to anything other than the Nintendo platforms. As such, I'll be concentrating on the Nintendo Entertainment System edition. Specifically, I'm looking at the Classics edition, which contains both Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. For those of you in the know, you will be well aware of the ongoing place Donkey Kong has in competitive gaming. The Billy Mitchell vs Steve Wiebe saga seems to have been running forever at this point, and even casual gamers around the world still enjoy pushing themselves for faster completion or higher scores of the game. Personally, I've never been part of that world, although I dare say there are some games that I may be able to set a reasonably high score. A few years ago I thought I'd see what all the fuss was about with Donkey Kong. I had of course played Donkey Kong many times over the years, but never tried serious speedruns, as I'm more of a casual player, at least with this game. You can see from the footage here some of my practice runs. Sadly, a lot of backtracking, missed items, and unoptimised finish times. Never mind though, Donkey Kong is all about the fun, and I do still have a lot of fun with this game. The game premise is deceptively simple. Donkey Kong has the princess, and you play as a rather youthful Mario that must rescue her. Level 1 sees you on what the community call the girder level. The premise is simple. Get to the top and rescue the princess by climbing the ladders, avoid the barrels and destroy them by using the hammer. For bonus points you can also jump over the barrels. All in all, a very simple concept. It looks easy, but the pattern memorization and controls make this somewhat of an art form to get right. Still, when you master it, there is that glowing feeling of nostalgic satisfaction. Level 2 is sometimes known as the elevator level, or just elevators. Here's where things get tricky. It's a case of learning the patterns and making those precise jumps to reach the end goal. Level 3 is known as rivets. Again, the main goal remains the same, to rescue the princess. This time around though, you will have to walk over several rivets to release them. Be careful not to fall down the holes they leave behind though. There are of course bonus items to pick up, and it's almost certain that you will need to use the hammer to destroy the fireballs at some point. The level is a moderate challenge, although perhaps a little more open plan than the previous levels, actually making it easier to complete than the other two stages in my experience. Once you make your way to the top, you free the princess and send Donkey Kong on a one-way street to a bump on a noggin. After that, the game simply loops back round and ups the difficulty. What's here is really great, although serious Donkey Kong fans will be quick to tell you that the arcade version is still king, with extra level designs and slightly different timings to the programming. However, for the casual retro gamer, I still find this home port good fun to prove your retro credentials with friends, and that's coming from a lifelong Sega collector. Perhaps more up my street though is the second game on the cartridge, Donkey Kong Jr. This time around you play as Donkey Kong Jr. on his mission to save Donkey Kong, who has been captured and locked up by Mario. For a happy-go-lucky plumber, he certainly holds a grudge and isn't above animal cruelty. Seriously though, who has a big bag of these snapping creatures on hand to attack a young gorilla with? Although perhaps not a popular opinion, which I'm sure will emerge in the comments, I actually preferred Donkey Kong Jr. as a gaming experience. Personally, I find the level designs more engaging, the platforming takes a bit more skill, and overall, the experience is more enjoyable. Let me show you why. Level 1 sees you already in the thick of the action. You'll have to climb ropes, make timed jumps, and overall avoid a lot more enemies than in the original game. There's also the extra mechanic of holding onto the vines. You can climb up one vine at a time to ascend or descend. However, if you hold 2 vines, you can move up and down at a much greater speed. This comes at the expense of making yourself a larger target area though, so there is a strategic payoff. Level 2 really plunges you into the gameplay even further. You're now introduced to a spring to get you across large gaps, and you will also need to perfect timings to grab hold of moving vines this time around. Throw into the mix a perpetual onslaught of egg-dropping birds, you've got yourself all the ingredients for a very challenging level. Until you memorise the pattern, that is. By level 3, Mario has gone full-on psycho by introducing an electrified grid into the mix. It's become yet another iconic level as you climb the ropes and make perfectly timed leaps over the moving electricity bolts. It's a clear step up in gameplay from the original game. If you've got the skills, you can also collect the fruit to drop onto the electricity bolts. Some of the issues I have with the original Donkey Kong are that until the game loops, the difficulty curve is reasonably flat. With Donkey Kong Jr., each level introduces new elements and the timings become more specific. The 4th stage of Donkey Kong Jr. is perhaps the most iconic. Now that you've collected all of the keys, you must unlock Donkey Kong. To do this, you will be strategically pushing the keys up into the locks whilst dodging the various birds and snapping enemies. Again, what looks very simple is actually very challenging until you know the patterns of the enemies. It's exactly this type of pattern recognition that I have in mind when I think of games from around this era. There's so much going on around you, to onlookers it looks rather impressive, but of course if you know the safe spots on the screen, it becomes a different story. Once Donkey Kong is rescued, Mario takes a bit of a nasty tumble from a height, and the game loops with some incremental difficulty thrown in for good measure. As a classics collection, Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. work very well together. Of course, with this being a Nintendo Entertainment System release, you are going to want to hunt down a box copy in as near a mint condition as you can find. If you are looking for this game, look for a complete set, which should include the outer box, manual, game cartridge and Nintendo cartridge sleeve. My edition sadly has a small imperfection, but never mind, as this is a game that's meant to be taken down and played. If you are in the UK looking for this PAL edition, then around £20 is achievable through the online auctions for a copy in reasonable condition, perhaps up to around £30 for a really mint condition. For a North American NTSC release, around $30 is still achievable online, on a good day as low as $20. It's been quite a while since its initial release, so I would expect prices to have levelled out by now. However, mint-in-box black label editions or the individual games will perhaps continue to climb for some time. So, there you have it, 2 Nintendo classics rolled into one cartridge. Whilst I'm nowhere near as big a fan of Nintendo as a lot of the gamers watching this video, I can fully recommend this compilation played on the original hardware. It's simply vintage gaming at its best. Hello again, I hope you enjoyed today's show and thank you for the view. Remember, you can always comment, like, subscribe and find us on the social media sites below. Happy collecting!